German weapons flow into Sudan's genocidal war via Antichrist Turkey and Saudi Arabia. Made in Germany, fired in Sudan, Berlin silent as German weapons reach Islamist-linked forces. By Willsnation reporters, February 18, 2026. Rights groups warn Germany's credibility as a human rights champion is on the line as HK rifles reportedly flow into Sudan's war via Turkey and Saudi Arabia. A troubling arms trail is emerging from Sudan's devastating civil war. One that leads back to Germany, and to a glaring silence in Berlin. Sudanese diaspora organizations, corroborated by patterns documented by major international rights bodies, allege that Heckler and Koch G3 and G36 assault rifles and MP5 submachine guns have been reaching Islamist-aligned factions embedded within the Sudanese Armed Forces, SAF, via third-country intermediaries, primarily Turkey and Saudi Arabia, in clear violation of an EU arms embargo on Sudan in place since 1994. The allegations touch on a subject critics say Germany's political establishment and media have been reluctant to confront, that the SAF harbors powerful Islamist elements with ties to Muslim Brotherhood-aligned networks from the Omar al-Bashir era. The diversion pattern is not new. Saudi Arabia holds an HK license to manufacture the G3 and G36, and German-engineered weapons have repeatedly ended up far beyond their intended end users. Turkey has also been separately accused of secretly channeling weapons and ammunition to the SAF in violation of international sanctions. A July 2024 Amnesty International report found large-scale weapons transfers to Sudan from China, Russia, Turkey, and the UAE, some in direct violation of the UN Darfur arms embargo. What makes these allegations particularly sensitive is who within the SAF allegedly receives the weapons. European policy analysts have openly noted that SAF Commander General Boran has failed to distance himself from Islamist factions fighting alongside his forces, and that former Bashir-era Islamists, hosted in part by Qatar, remain critical to the SAF's financial and military supply networks. Yet diaspora groups say German media and parts of the political elite have avoided this dimension, unwilling to acknowledge that a formally recognized military force contains strong Islamist elements. Germany prides itself on rigorous post-export arms controls, but critics say the system collapses when weapons are diverted through licensed third-country producers. Berlin has not announced any investigation into German-origin weapons reaching Sudan, despite human rights organizations' warning of both legal and moral liability. Amnesty International has called the international response to Sudan's arms flows woefully inadequate, describing the conflict as fueled by an almost unimpeded supply of weapons from states and corporate actors worldwide. For a country that places human rights at the center of its foreign policy identity, the silence is becoming hard to defend. Some specific allegations regarding Islamist factions within the SAF receiving German-branded weapons have not yet been independently verified by major news organizations and are presented here as claims under active investigation.
Welcome to Genocidal 2026. Dear government, you just got caught, because it's no longer a conspiracy that Germany is essentially run by an Islamist agenda. Not only do we have Islamists in the country regularly committing terrorist attacks, no, Germany just got exposed for sending weapons to Islamists in the Middle East, facilitating more civil wars and therefore enabling more refugee routes where Islamists can easily infiltrate these paths to send more of their own towards Europe. We have evidence that the German government is currently actively collaborating with Turkey, Saudi Arabia and Iran and secretly equipping Islamist militias in Sudan with weapons. This is where our taxes are going. And meanwhile, the German legacy media and the government are telling us that the United States, out of all countries, are no longer our ally.
Was mich bei der Szene, die Sie am Anfang gezeigt haben, wirklich überrascht hat, war die Brutalität und die Schärfe. Und das zeigt letztlich, dass die USA kein Verbündeter mehr sind, dass sie sich immer mehr von den demokratischen Werten, die die transatlantische Beziehung mal ausgemacht haben, entfernen, dass sie immer autokratischer werden, dass wir offensichtlich andere Ziele verfolgen, was Trump möchte.
I want to remind you right now how Chancellor Friedrich Merz was so grateful that Israel was doing the, quote, dirty work for us in the West.
Das ist die Drecksarbeit, die Israel macht. Für uns alle.
Meanwhile, our taxes are literally funding the opposition, radical Islamists blowing up civilians. This is going to become a massive legal problem for our Chancellor Friedrich Merz. Well, if he is held accountable. The European Union have maintained a ban on delivering weapons to Sudan since 1994, and there's also an arms embargo from the United Nations on Sudan, which has been renewed multiple times since 2004. Germany has ignored these violations of export laws via third parties, and no, it cannot be argued that it was negligence, which would be bad enough, or they simply did not personally deliver the weapons to Sudan, which means it's fine. No, it's not, because there are actually very strict laws with controls prohibiting the re-export of weapons. And why are we delivering weapons to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, and Iran in the first place? And how did this happen multiple times? What's quite shocking to me on top of that is that in Germany, and let's be honest, all over the West, most people are not very familiar with what's actually going on with the war in Sudan. I have made multiple videos about this, and I think it's important for you to be informed, because I do understand that we gotta put our own countries first. So why would we care about Sudan? And the truth is that it affects us, and our taxes are paying for what's going on there. And if this goes downhill and it all ends badly, then we will be the recipients of refugees once again. You know what? Now that we're investigating the facts, it almost looks like there is indeed an Islamist conspiracy taking place in the German government. Because why would they strategically and secretly fund and send weapons to Islamists in the Middle East, if not for the sole purpose of destroying the Christian values of the West? In public, they are all about human rights, but it seems like the truth is that they are just a bunch of hypocritical human wrongs.
Saudi border guards accused of Ethiopia migrant killings were U.S., Germany trained. Saudi border guards accused of killing migrants were reportedly trained by U.S. and German forces. Saudi guards, who have been accused by a rights group of killing hundreds of Ethiopian migrants on the Yemen border, were trained by Germany and the U.S., according to reports. Germany's federal police trained the guards between 2009 and 2020, with a brief break following the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. U.S. military funding for border force training took place between 2015, when Riyadh intervened in the Yemen war, and July 2023, according to a report from The Guardian. The border force is responsible for securing the Saudi border from Houthi rebel infiltrations and attacks, but Human Rights Watch, HRW, alleged that guards had also killed hundreds, possibly thousands, of Ethiopian refugees who had attempted to enter the kingdom. Riyadh has dismissed the claims as unfounded, while the Ethiopian authorities announced a joint probe with Saudi Arabia into the alleged killings. German and U.S. agencies' training efforts ran alongside Saudi Arabia's strengthening of its border surveillance, which should have better enabled guards to distinguish between fighters and civilians during infiltration attempts. This infrastructure included CCTV, thermal imaging, and ground motion sensors, some of which were monitored remotely from Riyadh, according to The Guardian. The HRW report said that Saudi Arabia border guards used machine guns and mortars on Ethiopians trying to cross into the kingdom. With thousands living in refugees camps on the Yemen border having fled fighting and abject poverty at home.
This rare footage captures the hell faced by those trying to cross from Yemen to Saudi Arabia, as filmed by the migrants themselves. This man has serious injuries in the legs and in the back. This woman's arm is wounded. And a man called Elias lost his leg to an explosive round of ammunition. Outside Al Jamouri Hospital, a cargo container is filled with at least 4 corpses. Those still standing don't have access to medicine or supplies. This is far from the worst of it. Human Rights Watch interviewed dozens of witnesses who testified that Saudi Arabian border guards are carrying out massacres.
I saw people killed in a way I have never imagined. I saw 30 people killed on the spot.
Between March 2022 and June 2023, Saudi guards are alleged to have killed hundreds, if not thousands, of people trying to cross into the country, 9 out of 10 of them being Ethiopian. These satellite photos taken in February 2022 and released by Human Rights Watch show 12 hastily prepared graves in the mountains near the border. By June this year, there were 6 times that number, 72.
We found that Saudi border guards had used explosive weapons and shot people at close range, including women and children.
The mass murder is systematic and ongoing, according to Human Rights Watch.
This research is important because while Saudi Arabia is trying to play an even bigger role on the international stage and is intent on whitewashing and sports washing its image internationally, it is simultaneously firing explosive weapons at unarmed civilians.
In 2017, the kingdom expanded its so-called Saudization policy to prioritize Saudi employees over expatriates, while undertaking a vast deportations campaign. Human Rights Watch is adamant that if Riyadh gave the order to kill these migrants, it would undoubtedly constitute a crime against humanity.
ردنا على الغرب نفس الكلام هذا نعيده بالإنجليزية. Anybody that challenges the existence of this country and this kingdom, all of us, we are projects of jihad and martyrdom. That's my message to anybody that thinks that he can threaten us.